Hi, so I just wanted to come on here and give a little bit of an update of everything that's been happening. A lot has happened since I last posted a video. Had another surgery, so yeah, I just wanted to chat about that. So after the first surgery, it was a long recovery process. Well, what I thought was a long recovery process, but it was so worth it in the end. I had really positive results and I'm so happy I went through with it. In February this year, I had my second PAO on my left hip. We only did the surgery as a preventative measure. We only did it as a preventative measure so that in the future it doesn't deteriorate. I don't get arthritis on that side, and the possibility of me having to have a hip replacement on that side is a lot less if I had this done now. So going into it, I was assuming, probably wrongly assuming, that this would be a little bit easier because I've never had issues with that side, so the recovery would be easier. My muscles on that side were a lot stronger. Anyway, fast forward to the surgery, and the surgery was a lot quicker. My first one I think was 4 or 5 hours, and this one was only 2 to 3 hours. I was very sick in the hospital. Anesthetic and me really don't mix very well. I was more sick this time than I was last time, but which caused me to not be able to eat for about 2 weeks properly because my stomach was so painful after that. But I felt stronger than the first surgery. Getting out of bed, I was out of bed quicker. I was up the stairs on the second day of walking. I was already up and down a flight of stairs. Everything seemed to be going really well. And then we drove home, which was painful. It was just over a 5-hour drive home, which, I mean, as you can imagine, is not pleasant. It's not pleasant when you haven't had a hip operation, but anyway. And then about a week after I got home, I started to feel like just a different kind of pain. Something happened that caused this pain, and I don't know what it was, but it was unpleasant. It wasn't excruciating, but it was very unpleasant. And my mom noticed on the outside of my left hip, it was very hot and it was red, and she was concerned that I had an infection. So I went to see a doctor, and he said he thinks I have a slight infection. So he gave me strong antibiotics, and then the next evening I really wasn't feeling great. I was in quite a bit of pain, and my mom was quite concerned about the infection, so she took me to the emergency room. We were sort of dismissed at the emergency room, kind of like they kind of made my mom feel like she was an overbearing mother and she was overreacting. And the surgeon at this hospital was very dismissive of me. He made me feel like I was imagining what was happening, but he didn't understand what surgery I had done. So he wasn't very nice to me, but that's another story. So he told me there was nothing wrong. He did x-rays and everything and blood and all of that stuff, and he said he couldn't see anything was wrong. So he sent me home with stronger pain meds. I already couldn't function on the pain meds before, but he gave me something stronger which I couldn't take. And when you're on 2 crutches, you need to function so that you don't fall downstairs or something, Then we got home, and my mom decided she wasn't happy with what the doctor said, and she wanted to keep my surgeon kind of in the loop because he's in a different city to me. So she sent him a copy of my x-rays, and he said I somehow managed to crack a bone. I think it was because I'm so used to being dependent on my left leg, and so it was very hard for me to transition into relying solely on my right leg. And so one day I was getting off the toilet and there were no handles in the bathroom, and I went to stand up and I put too much weight on my left side, and I think that may have been when it happened because that was quite painful. But that, surprisingly, it was sore, but it didn't feel like what I thought a broken bone or a cracked bone would feel like. But then about a week after that, I had a really, really bad experience. So it started that I just moved in my bed, like slid in the bed, and I said to my mom, ow, that hurt, you know, like, but on my right side. So I said to her, you know, that doesn't feel great, but I'll just brush it off as if it was nothing. And that kept happening over the course of a few days. And then about a week after that, that pain slowly just started getting worse and worse and worse. And it would be to a point where I was like crutching to the lounge or something, and my mom would be walking behind me like with her hands under my armpits, because if I'd walk I'd get this pain that literally made my legs like buckle, so she had to like catch me. And then one day I went into her room and I was saying to her, you know, something doesn't feel right and I'm in a lot of pain, and this is on my right side, which I was operated on over a year ago. Why is it so painful? But I didn't want to really acknowledge it, because then it was like maybe the first surgery wasn't as successful as I thought it was. Anyway, so then I was sitting on the end of her bed and I went to like push up to get off, and this searing pain went through my hip, and it wasn't really, I don't know, it was in there somewhere. And then I got stuck that I couldn't sit back down, but I couldn't stand back up, so I was stuck like hovering like that, but like crying, and my mom didn't know what to do. And I was stuck like that for about half an hour, and we managed to scoot me back about 30 centimeters, which took us probably 10 minutes just to do. And she put my feet on a chair, and then after about another hour I managed to slowly through the hour scoot myself back up to the top of the bed, which was really scary, that such a slight movement completely immobilized me and that I couldn't figure out what was wrong. It was like this pain that was coming from somewhere, but I couldn't figure out what was causing the pain. So there was no specific movement that was causing this pain. It would just come really randomly, which was really unsettling, and it really scared me, and it was the most unpleasant experience I've probably ever had. I've experienced a lot of pain, but I've never experienced pain where I felt like I was going to pass out and it made me want to vomit. Like I've never experienced pain like that. And I can handle a lot of pain. It's like a joke in my family about how much pain I can deal with, but this was on another level. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't get comfortable, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't move in my bed, I couldn't go to the toilet. It was awful. And this went on for about another 2 weeks, because we were hoping it was maybe a muscular thing that was going to go away if I rested, you know. We ended up having to get a wheelchair for me because I couldn't use my crutches at all. It was so painful just move like this in my bed. So eventually we spoke to my surgeon in Cape Town, and he said he doesn't know what it could be. He's looked at my x-rays and he can't see anything on the x-rays, so he'd like me to come down there. So I ended up back in the hospital for another 5 days while they did MRIs and CAT scans and all of that stuff. And it took them 5 days to figure out that I had a stress fracture. And now to me, a stress fracture doesn't sound like something that would be that painful, considering I just had my pelvis broken, but it was seriously painful. And I think he basically put it down to the fact that one of my bones on the other side hadn't fused entirely, so there was, all the pressure was on one specific area. So because of that, it was just taking too much stress, me completely relying on that leg and not having relied on that leg for like my whole life. So he said there's nothing he can do, especially not now, considering it's only been like a month since my surgery. So we just kind of had to keep doing what we were doing and take it very slowly. So that's what we ended up doing for another 3-4 weeks. So this whole thing was about 2 months, which seemed like it was never going to end. I thought I was never going to be pain-free ever again, and at that point I was seriously regretting my decision. I was like, I did this to myself, you know, I didn't need to have the surgery on this side. That's how I felt. I didn't need to have it. It wasn't urgent, so why did I do it now? Why did I do it? How stupid can you be? And now, having recovered from that, it was a good decision and I've recovered really well. It's the first time I had this why me thoughts as well, but this time it was really like, why did I do this? I did this to myself. I consciously made this decision. This decision wasn't made for me. I made this decision. It slowly got better, and now it's been however many months and I'm almost pain-free. I get stiff every now and then, but I think if that's all I have from 2 major surgeries, then I'm okay with that. If I have a slight limp, my leg is like this much shorter than the other, my right leg, so, but if that's all I have, then I'm happy. You know, it could be a lot worse. So if anyone's considering having the surgery, for me it's changed my life. I wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things I can do now, even though I haven't completely recovered. Before, it was like living in chronic pain, which, looking back at, seems ludicrous that I went that long without saying anything. But in the moment, in the time, you don't think that anyone's going to believe you or that your pain is as bad as you think it is. So if you're considering having this surgery, I would definitely recommend looking into it at least and trying to find a good doctor that suits you, and do good research if this is something that you're willing to do. It is a long recovery process, so you need to be prepared to be ready for that, you know, like to have the right support and to be able to have the time off. I was very lucky that my parents looked after me, and financially and physically. So yeah, I think if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask. I know for both surgeries, I had a million questions that I wanted answered, and I mean, I may not be able to answer them. A lot of these questions are very personal, but if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. And yeah, I think I might make another video about how this has affected me mentally. I think those are the things that I'm now struggling with. The physical is kind of over, now it's kind of the mental things that it's kind of the way it's affected me. So, but anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon, hopefully.